This project's going to be a lot of fun because this is something I've needed to do for quite some time now, and have tried to do it through other means, but hasn't turned out correctly for me. So I'm going to have to take this into my own hands, I guess, and actually do a little work on this tree in order to get a first branch. As you probably saw before, this is a very large trident maple, and I've got a great canopy, developing on the tree, but I am lacking a first branch big time, and it is definitely showing these days. So I was hoping that this bud right here would have grown, but however, it did sprout, but the leaves have dried up and it's definitely failing, so it's not going to grow for me at all. And I don't want to go another season without getting a first branch on this thing, because it's going to take a lot of development anyway. For the size of this tree, this first branch has to be pretty massive, at least a 1.5 to 2 inch thick branch, which is going to take a little while to develop on this thing. So in order to get a branch right where I want it, the best way to do this is through a thread graft. So what we're going to do is we're going to find a location where I want to put the branch, and I've got this sample stick. I'm thinking somewhere in this general area would be the perfect spot. It gives me enough space between the upper and lower branch, gives me good movement, and fills in this branch really nice. So of course my branch will be a lot more curved and a lot more filled in, but I think this is a good spacing for it. So I'm looking to get a branch to develop somewhere in this general area. So what I'm going to do is do what's called a thread graft. Now you can use a branch from the original tree, which is the easiest because you're already getting nutrition and you're getting a perfect match for the same kind of trident maple. But I don't have a long enough sprout to, or shoot to bring through the tree, because it's such a far distance. We're talking probably about 3 or 4 inches that I have to drill through to get this thing through. So what I did was I got a what's called a whip. It's trident maple. They grow very, very long, very slender until they start to thicken up. Now keep in mind, this is about a 2 or 3 year old tree. So just imagine how old this trunk is. I mean, this has got to be 60 years old at least. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this whip, remove all the leaves, leave the secondary leaves so that when it does come through, they're ready to pop out again. And the only thing you're going to need for this is a pair of shears to remove the leaves. You're going to need some cut paste to seal the wound, and then a drill to make the initial, to puncture it through so that you can actually thread the whip through. And the way I usually do this is I get a drill bit and hold it up to about the thickness of the branch, and give yourself a little bit of room, but not much. You want this to be a snug fit, because the tighter this gets in the trunk, the sooner it's going to adhere to the cambium of the outside of the tree. So you get something that's close, but give yourself a little bit of wiggle room, and it looks like that's going to do it. Probably maybe a 1/4 inch, maybe a little bit smaller, maybe 3/32, 3/16, something like that is the width that this looks like it's going to be. And the nice thing about this whip is it stays pretty consistently thin all the way through. So I'll show you the process, and hopefully this thing's going to take off and we'll get a branch right where we want to have it. Okay, so I determined the best place to put the branch is right in this general area. So what you're going to try and do is find the most direct means to get through the tree. So you don't want to go through the full width of the tree, especially something this thick. You just want to get in and out as fast as you can. I'm going to go in through a scar, which is actually a little bit of dead wood, but the entrance is not the important part. It has to make sure that you come out in live cambium. So that's the only thing that you really got to pay attention to. So I'm just going to drill the hole right now. And we're going to kind of go in right through this direction right here. I kind of like this part that kind of comes out. It kind of already leads into a type of a bump already, so when the branch grows, it'll actually look very, very natural when it finally takes. Make sure I check the depth to make sure that I'm going to be able to reach that far. And let's give it a shot. Okay, so we got the hole drilled, and now the next step is to remove the leaves so that we can actually fit this through that small little hole. I get as close as I can without affecting the secondary bud that's about to come out, or the next set of leaves. Get in close, leave yourself a little bit, but if you leave it too much, what's going to happen is you're pushing it through the hole, it's going to grab and it's going to rip this down a little bit. So get in as tight as you can, but don't affect those second leaves if you can. It's a slow process, but this is very important, and I talk about removing the terminal bud all the time, but if you can be careful enough and actually save that and not hit it, it would be a great one to have on this set, because you definitely would love for this branch to get as long as possible, because you want this thing to thicken up as fast as can be, because when it thickens up, it actually then becomes cambium of the other tree. I was able to get this lip this morning from Adam Levine, part of the Central Florida Bonsai Club, and had a great selection for me, so I was pretty happy. This is a perfect tree. It's so thin and it's extremely long, and I needed something really long to get through this trunk, because like I said, it's going through a full 4 inches. And keep in mind, I got to keep this thing alive as well. So what happens is this part of the tree is going to sit next to my sprinkling system attached to the base of the tree. This is then going to work its way up the tree, then through the thread graft, and then out as far as possible. And then all the feeding I'm going to do is going to be down here at the base of this tree, keep it watered to make sure it's healthy. A lot of nitrogen. We want shoots. We want this thing to grow long, and fast as fast as possible. So a lot of miracle grow, that type of thing. I don't let any foliage on the entry side of the cut or entry side of the thread graft. You don't want to waste any energy down there. So this stuff all goes. All you're going to have is a thin. Well, they call it a whip for a reason. It's a thin branch that just looks like a whip. So there we go. We're just going to remove all that out. We don't want any growth down here, so keep that nice and clean. This is the stuff that we want. We want popping at the other end. So right there is my terminal bud. I'm going to take off a branch on each side of it and do my best to get that through the thread graft without damaging that bud. Okay, you can see how thin this is going to be when it's done. It's a really thin shoot, much like a thread, because you don't need much more than that. All you need is just some sort of life to get across. And how this thing works, when you insert it through the hole, the only thing that's coming up through the center of the tree is water. So, and everything, all the energy and all the food that's produced by the leaves comes down the cambium, the bark, just inside the bark. It's that green layer that you see when you scratch with your nail. That's the cambium. So what happens is, the water's going to come up through this tree. It's going to produce leaves, and then the leaves are going to start sending food back down. And until this thing actually is big enough, it's going to descend right back to the roots of this tree. But as soon as this thing starts to get fatter and fatter, all of a sudden now it's being compressed into that hole, and it can no longer send nutrients down because it's too tight. So what happens is it starts to mesh with the cambium of the other tree. This cambium and that cambium start to mesh together, and now water comes up to the center of this tree, food goes down, and instead of going back to the base of this tree, it's now going to go to the cambium of the large trident maple and start sending energy down through that. So that's where it's going to start to, all of a sudden, there's a connection there, and now it's going to start getting water. As it starts to expand, it's going to start pushing all the bark. So now it's going to start getting water from the source of the tree. So the whole flow is going to go up through here. So what's going to happen is this is going to stay the same thickness, but this, by the exit, is going to start getting fatter. So as soon as you see this part that's now coming out of the tree getting thicker than this part, you know that the thread graft's taken. And thread grafts work very, very well. 99% of the time they'll take, because they have no option. They have to grow, and they have to they have to have a way to expand and get energy back down to the base of the tree. So it's gonna just naturally do it. The only mistake I made on this was I started it kind of late. I was really hoping the tree was going to produce a branch for me this year, and I had my hopes in that small little bud, but it just gave up on me. So this is the alternative. And there's a lot of times when people ask, should I do a thread graft on this? And I say no, because a lot of trees want to break out on old wood, and if you just give them time, they will. But in this situation, I don't have an alternative. The reason that's not budding is because it's in a shady area. It's not getting a whole lot of sunlight. The tree's like, why would I grow a branch under another branch? Because it's just going to die anyway. So it's not going to waste the energy there. It would rather send more growth at the top of the tree. So that's what it's doing. So this is a perfect example of when you would need to do a thread graft. So there I am, completely removed all the leaves, nice thin, and ready to be inserted into the trident maple. So now what we're going to do is we're going to insert into what was the entry wound is now going to be the exit wound. This is where the branch is going to come out. So I'm going to slowly insert this through and thread it through that hole. And hopefully we won't damage the branch too badly on the way in. This is going to be a tight maneuver here. Now, for the large trident maple, this is looking at this thing. This could be a nail. This could be a splinter, it could be some sort of something, you know, protruding into the tree. So this wound that I've created, all it's what I want to do is just start to curl over. So as the branches or the thread graft is actually getting thicker, this is starting to roll its cambium over too. So the two combined are what's going to squeeze this thing, or squeeze this branch so that it can actually graft through. It's feeding through real nice now. And there it is. We still have the terminal bud intact, which is excellent news. And I'm definitely losing some on the way in, but doing the best I can. Once it starts to get started, it's getting a little fat, so I'm going to trim this back a little bit. But the most important ones are through at this point. And again, if you do lose your buds on the way in, it's not the end of the world. You're still going to be able to, it'll still, that as long as the branch is healthy or your source tree is healthy, you're still going to get buds coming back out. You get this in there nice and tight. And then all we're going to do is just a little bit of seal paste on this thing, wire it in position, and there you have your thread graft. Now on the other end, what I had also done, because I got to make sure that this thing gets watered, so I just put this right next to one of my sprinkler heads, which will water it every day. Put a little bit of fertilizer in there, put a little bit of blood meal in there to give it a lot of nitrogen so we get new shoots. But that's the way I'm going to try and keep this thing full of energy and hopefully growing on the far end and get this graft to take as soon as possible. Did a little bit of finishing touching on this, and all I did was just put a little bit of the Graft Sealant. I sell this in Orlando Bonsai. This port tube's been around for a while, but this stuff lasts for a long time. And all you do is just want to seal around the actual wound on both ends. Definitely the end where it entered or exited the tree, and on the entry. That just kind of keep the moisture in. And then I'd put a little bit of wire on it just to hold it in place, just kind of give it some direction. And I just want to make sure I moved it into the sun. The direction it was coming out was actually under another branch that was in the shade, and I just want to make sure I get the full sun on this. And we'll give this about a week and hopefully see some leaves popping up by the end of next week.